Hi, how are you all today? Um, Today I'm going to be going to talk about it's going to be a memoir today. I think I've done crime fiction and I've done literary fiction. I did a memoir, but it's on a blog, and I'm going to do a recording of that memoir because that's another remarkable one. This one is by a cultural figure in the UK. She's Nigerian. She's a British Nigerian. She's a cultural figure in the UK. Her name is Ife Adenuga, and she wrote this book called Endless Fortune. Ife is a mother of Skepta, who is an award-winning artist, a grime artist in the UK. And she also have three other children, JME, Jason, Julie. I hope I got all those names right. Skepta is Joseph Jr., so he's known as Joseph Jr. And if his husband is Joseph Adenuga, so Joseph Adenuga Sr. and Joseph Jr. And the children have all gone on to become very successful creative artists in the UK, which is not a very easy thing to achieve. So an applause for that. So Endless Fortune, I'll tell you how I came about this book. I had no idea who Ife Adenuga uh, was, and I had no idea who Skepta was. I listened to old style music, so I didn't know anything about. I knew there was a grime scene, but I didn't know anything about it. And I was kind of like just scrolling through Instagram, few years ago, going through Instagram, and this book popped on my feed, and I looked at it, and I saw the name, and I didn't even put this on, so I was quite impressed because I saw Endless Fortune, Ife Adenuga, because I love to read about memoirs. I love reading memoirs. I love reading biographies. And this is um obviously a Nigerian woman, and I thought it was actually set in Nigeria, only to discover that she actually lives in the UK. So I did some more research, and of course I bought the book and I read it, and I was fascinated. And the reason I'm doing this talk on this book today is because it has two important ingredients. And not only is it compelling and interesting read, but I believe that it's got historical significance and quite a one to have on a bookshelf if you're interested in to Nigerian history and community as one. And two, if you're interested in the civil war that took place in Nigeria and Nigeria of the 80s, as a Britain of the 80s, not Nigeria of the 80s. So I'll give you a little bit about Ife. So Ife lived in Lagos with her parents. Her parents were from the eastern part of Nigeria. So the way Nigeria works, I'll give you just a little bit of how Nigeria is split. And I can't go deep into the ethnicity because there's masses of ethnicities, over 250 ethnic tribes in Nigeria, ethnicities in Nigeria. So if you is Igbo, so and where her parents migrated to in Lagos, which used to be the capital. The capital is Abuja now. Um, Lagos is in the west of Nigeria where they speak Yoruba, and the Igbos they speak Igbo. And then you have the north of Nigeria where you have Hausa. So the three main languages in Nigeria, when I say main, I'm just talking about main because you have all the other um, ethnicities and languages. Um, but Igbo, Yoruba, Hausas are quite well-known languages. So her parents migrated from the eastern part of Nigeria to Lagos to live when she was a child. Then, I think it was about 90, the war in Nigeria, the civil war in Nigeria was between 1967 and 1970. So around 1960, I would say about 1967, um, there was already, maybe before that, would have been before 67, but there was already um, things, trouble brewing, and there were Igbos were being attacked on the streets of Lagos because this was already kind of like what shall I call it? Not enmity, but there was already kind of like hostility brewing and all sorts of unrest between the two. Um, General Odumegu Ojukwu, who was the governor of Biafra State, had declared Biafra State after that. So Ife's parents decided to go back to the eastern part of Nigeria, and a lot of Igbos, a lot of relatives and friends followed suit. So Ife has a first-hand account of Biafra. She lived in Biafra. She lived in, I think I'm trying to remember where they went to. I should have remembered that in Igbo land, because Igbo, of course, is made up of different cities and villages. So they actually went to their village, and she was a teenager during Biafra. She was helping her parents. She even helped in the hospitals. People that might remember, if you were doing research in Biafra War, or if you remember the war itself, the children, they used to show the children in the West, when they showed the war, they would show the children with distended stomachs and thin legs and large heads, and they had a disease called kwashiorkor. So Ife's sister Harriet actually died of kwashiorkor. She lost a sister, and she lost more relatives in Biafra. Now, the war ended in 1970. When the war ended, eventually, Ife went back to Lagos, where her father had gone back to find work. She had not finished primary school when the war broke out. So she was 14 and had to finish primary school at 14. Once she finished her primary school, she went back to Lagos and got into a really good school. Even the way she got into the school is a story in itself. So that's why I would say, get your copy. So she got into it's a good secondary school, finished that, got got a series of jobs, and then finally decided to go and seek a fortune in the UK. So she actually emigrated to the UK in the 80s. So she not only has a true account of Biafra, but she now has an account of 80s Britain, where she came in and she was an illegal immigrant. So that was in itself a big issue in itself for her, throughout her journey there here. But at some point, she got married, and she met Joseph Adenuga, her husband, who is known as Joseph Adenuga Sr. And they had their children. And I love the fact that she's such a big personality that comes across in this biography. She's a natural storyteller, and she had children, the four children. She had Skepta, who is Joseph Adenuga Jr., Jamie, Julie, Jason. I hope I got all the four names right. She had the four children, brought them up to feel free to express themselves. She didn't restrict them. She, which was quite unusual. Nigerian parents of that time, are very strong on send your school to, send your children to get a good education and to become like that, doctors, lawyers, maybe go into IT or be an accountant, something really solid in the society, because they just want the children to do really well. But she didn't do that. When her children expressed their interest in the creative industry, she and her husband were quite, easygoing in that aspect and allowed them to express themselves. And the children, like I said, have become really successful. So I would say that Endless Fortune is essential reading for understanding Nigerian Civil War, a first-hand account. There have been many other accounts of people's accounts of the Civil War, but not many have written those accounts. I've not, for as far as I know, this is my first account of Civil War in Nigeria in the UK that is that's a fact, as opposed to fiction. If there's anyone, any account that you know of, please hit me up. Send me or make a comment and let me know, because I'll go and look for more. I'll go and hunt for more. But as far as I know, this is my, written account of Biafra War in the between 67 and 70 for someone who lived through Biafra. Ifeadi Adenuga's book is a really good one. Other than that, apart from she shows the importance, or a record of the importance of the immigrant experience in the 80s and the 90s. So she's going to be curated along with Jendela Benz's Hope and Glory. That will be curated under the British Nigerian experience, even though it's set both in Nigeria and in Britain. And I will say, I've talked on long enough. I say, get your copy. If you're interested in hearing that kind of account, I'll say get your copy of this. It's quite a great book. I enjoyed it, and I look forward to reading it again. Thank you so much for listening to me. Take care.